Hi guys, so we are going to navigate to our Google Ads account. Get yourselves all logged in and you will be back to your main screen. So as we discussed in the intro, obviously reporting will vary depending on exactly what you want to take a look at from a data perspective. However, for this example, we are going to look at campaign analysis broken down by day, month, year, and also your device. So if you want to just navigate to the campaign section of Google Ads, you select your date range up here in the top right hand corner. Usually when you're doing reporting, it might be a monthly report, which will compare this month to last month's data. It may be a yearly report. You might just want to take a look at the last 14 days or the last 60 days. But for this example, just so we can see a bit more information, I'm going to do a report based on the last 60 days worth of data. Ignore the fact that there's nothing here in my account. I have previously downloaded some dummy data, but I'm just going to show you the process in how to download the data yourself. So if you change your date range to the last 60 days up to yesterday and apply that, you'll have the download option. And what you'll want to do here is click on more options in order to segment your data by day, which will give you the date of the data broken down. And also for this, we're going to look at device. So we'll put another segmentation there on for device. And then you can download that as an Excel CSV format so we can use it in Microsoft Excel. Once the report's downloaded, it'll look something like this. I'm just going to close this report here because I have my dummy data ready from earlier. So first of all, we can get rid of these two top rows as it's just telling you it's a campaign report and the date range that you've downloaded for. So we'll remove that from our data. Now you might have at the bottom, if potentially some account level data, so it'll say account totals. You can delete that also. You only really want the campaign level data in here. So anything that falls under individual campaign names, anything that falls under total account data, you can remove from your sheet. So first of all, we are going to want to manipulate our data in order to be able to analyze it better. So here we have it broken down by the day of the date. So we've got the 24th of the 9th, 30th of the 9th, etc. But what I want to be able to see as well is what month that applies to and also what week of the year that applies to. So in order to make that a little bit simpler for me in the future, I'm going to add in some additional columns here, and I'm going to call 1 month and 1 week. And then basically I'm going to use what's called a VLOOKUP formula that will automatically pull in the month and the week based off this date in these cells. In order to do that, I'm going to create an additional tab here. So we'll call this the VLOOKUP sheet. I'm basically just going to copy all the dates that we already have here, paste that in. Now there might be some duplicates, so we'll just go to data and remove any duplicates. Okay, 61 unique values remain. I can filter this now, sort it by date, and now you can see it's running in order of date for the last 60 days, so 24th of 9th all the way through to the 22nd of the 11th. Just take the filter back off. Now what I want to do here is apply the week and the month that it applies to. So for the 24th of September, if my weeks are to run from Monday to Sunday, I'll have a look at my calendar. The 24th of September was a Tuesday, so I'm going to have my week commencing as the 23rd. So I'll change this to 23rd of the 9th, 2019, and that's going to apply for all dates that run up until the 29th. So I'll copy that down to the 29th. Then this week commencing the 30th, will be a Monday's date, so I can pop that in. And then as soon as you've got 7 consecutive dates in there, so 1, 2. We can do a little trick and just do equals start of the week plus 7, and then it'll give you the week commencing date correctly all the way down if you just drag it. So if I check for the 6th of the 11th, it should be week commencing the 4th. 6th of the 11th is week commencing the 4th. Now you can now drag this data down for as long as you want. So if you want to run it all the way into next year, just drag it all down. So on the 6th of February 2020, that's week commencing the 3rd of February. So we'll just check that in the calendar, make sure it's correct. February 2020, the 6th of February is week commencing the 3rd. So I know that's right. So now you've got that formula in there, you can just keep continuing to drag it to continuously update your report in the future. So if we go back to the top, we want the same thing for the month. So we'll have this as September. It's going to be a little bit more manual for this. Just simply because there isn't just 7 days in a month, or like the 7 days in a week, so we can add a formula on. So it will just be a little bit of manual work here, but it only takes a couple of seconds because there's not as many to go through. So I'm just going to do up to November for now. And then you can add the rest in later. Okay, so now we've got our date that we downloaded from the report, we've got the week, and we have the month of the year. So in my original data sheet here, I can now do the VLOOKUP formula, which will automatically pull this information in for me. So if I look up this cell in this sheet, pull back the 3rd column for the month, it will give me the relevant month. And you can spot check, so 11th, yeah, November, September, the 9th, yeah, that's all pulled in correctly. And then next time when you come to update your report and you drop your data into this section, this will all automatically update for you. So I usually highlight any columns that are formulas in a bold colour just so I know not to overwrite them. So we do the same formula here just to pull in the week. Second column, and it will pull it in like this initially. It's just pulled it through as general text. All you need to do is update it to the short date and it'll pull in the correct format for you. So now we've manipulated the data a little bit, it's going to make things easier when it comes to pulling together our report. So we'll be able to do sum if formulas, etc., based off the back of the month column or the week column, and organise our data in a way that we'll be able to analyse in detail. You can also add additional VLOOKUPs for your data, depending on different categories that you might want to add. It might be that campaigns fall into specific countries, so you might want to create a campaign VLOOKUP and assign it to a country, or it might be that you have brand and generic splits, so multiple brand campaigns and multiple generic campaigns that you want to segment into a brand and generic column so you can easily see the data split out at that level. But for this example in this report, we will focus with the month and the week segmentation. We've also automatically got the device in there because of the initial download that we did from Google Ads. You do have the option on Google Ads to add additional segmentations into this. So you do have week and month as well, which you could have just added in yourself, but I find it's useful to know these different formulas and tricks in Excel that will come in handy in the future for times when your weeks don't run as you'd want them to. From you might have some weeks that run from Sunday through Saturday, for example, and the data might automatically download as a Monday to Sunday. So it's just a little trick to help you out there in the future. Okay, so moving on, we will start to look at pulling together a report to analyze our data. Just a note on the columns that I've downloaded here. We have our columns that automatically download, such as your campaign status and budgets, etc., which aren't really going to impact what we're doing here. We're going to be looking into the data here. So we've got important clicks, impressions, click-through rate. It doesn't matter if you download it or not, because it's going to be a formula calculation anyway, as is average cost per click, cost per conversion, and conversion rate. But we do need the main columns, which is impressions, clicks, cost, and conversions. Potentially your impression share as well, if you want to look into that into a bit more detail. And that will allow us to organize our data and manipulate our data to be able to analyze it thoroughly. So the first tab that I'm going to create is going to be a weekly performance tab. So it's going to be a little bit messy when we first start building it, but we will tidy it all up at the end to make it look beautiful. So to start with, we are going to have the individual columns of data that we need. So first up, we'll have the date, impressions, clicks, click-through rate, cost, CPC, conversions, conversion rate, and cost per conversion. These might vary depending on what you're looking at. So if you're pulling in transactions and revenue, you might have your conversion rate and a ROAS target that you might calculate here instead of a cost per acquisition target. But because the data I'm using in this report is lead based, we'll be using a CPA calculation. So for the dates, I want the individual weeks across this. So I can pull in my week column here. Actually, do something. Just copy everything that we've got. And then just get rid of the duplicates. There we go. So I've got my, just ignore that, weeks running from the 23rd of the 9th up to the 7th of the 10th, and I can get rid of the rest of it because I don't need it. You can just manually write your dates in to start with. You could have just wrote in week commencing the 23rd of the 9th 2019, and then equals that plus 7, and pull it down, and that will do your weeks for you as well. I think just as a separate note, this has got formulas in it. It's when you copy anything from here with a formula into here, it will maintain the formula, which is why I pulled in some unusual numbers just before there. So just be mindful of that if you do copy anything over from a formula cell. So for the impressions, the reason that I've kind of manipulated the data a bit in the sheet like this is just so I can do an easy SUMIF formula, which will allow me to calculate anything that falls in under week commencing the 23rd of the 9th, for example. And you're probably thinking, can I not just see it in this data? Well, yes, you can, but you'll see there's multiple versions of week commencing the 23rd of the 9th because there's more than one day within that week, and we've also segmented it by campaign and device. So there's going to be a lot of different variations of that. So we need to be able to quickly sum it up in our sheet. So in order to do that, I'm going to introduce you to the SUMIF formula, which is built like this. And Excel is really great once you understand how to use it. It does explain what you need to do in the next part of the formula. So in this case, we've got the range, the criteria, and the sum range. So my range is going to be, I'm summing up my date range, which is the week, and the criteria is if it meets this specific date. Then I want it to pull back a sum range, so I want it to sum up all impressions. So I'll select the impressions tab. And saying I'm going to get 5,080 impressions for week commencing 23rd of the 9th 2019. So we can spot check that by filtering this data quickly, doing a quick check for week commencing the 23rd, and then highlighting all these, and you'll see the sum at the bottom, 5,080. So I now know that this is correct. Great. So simple, done. We have our impressions for that specific week. Now, it would be lovely if we could just drag this across and it filled in all columns, but unfortunately, SUMIF formulas do not work that easily. So in order to be able to drag your formulas across multiple cells, both horizontally and vertically, you need to lock your formulas. And what that means is basically you need to lock where the formula is looking at. So if we just dive back into this again, when I drag this to the right, this cell, I want the clicks to be still looking at this date, the 23rd of the 9th. So I'm going to lock the date, so which is cell B6. So you'll see it here, cell B6. Now I'm going to lock column B because every time I drag it over, I want it to remain in column B. But I don't need to lock the number because I want the option to be able to drag it down to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, etc. when I do the additional weeks. This will all make a bit more sense when I start dragging these cells along and show you. So I'm going to lock my column B, and in order to do that, you just put a little $ in front of it. And if you want to lock the full cell, you would add the 6 as well. But like I say, I'm not going to do that. So I've locked that cell already. So when I drag this over now, it still says 0, but it is looking at the correct cell. Now the reason it says 0 is because it's gone from looking at column B on our campaign report to now looking at column C. So everything you do to this formula, if you drag it, it will do to where it's looking, which is why you need to lock it. So B becomes C and N here becomes O. So again, we're going to have to lock them cells. So in this case, because we're looking at the full column, which is all of the week and all of the impressions, for example, we can lock the full column. So I am going to lock B, which is the weekday. So I always want this cell, this formula to look in column B for the week. It's always going to be there. With the column N, this is where it's pulling the impressions. I don't always want it to look at impressions because as we drag it along, the metrics that we're dragging it along for change. So in this case, I'm going to leave the N unlocked, and as I drag it, it will pull to different areas of the sheet, which will hopefully tie in. So now when I drag this across, it's now saying I've got 5.3 clicks on that date. So what we need to check now is column O the correct column for clicks? So no, it's not. It's actually column M in this case. You need to check your own data and what format it's downloaded in, because it might be that your columns are in different orders. So I'm going to now change this manually to look at column M. So now it's changed to 377 clicks, which looks a bit more realistic. If I highlight that, you can see there 377, 377. So that has worked for us correctly, and it will now work if we drag it down as well. Easy. So now we can do a quick spot check for week commencing the 21st. So we'll untick that and tick week commencing the 21st, and it should be that we've got 408 clicks and 5,663 impressions. 5,663 impressions, 408 clicks. So we know that that formula is working now, and moving forward, no matter how much we drag this down, so if I extend the dates, when I add more data into this, it'll say zeros at the minute. Oh, it's got week commencing the 18th in there, but as you add more data, it will just automatically populate for you, so you don't have to continuously create this formula in the future. So the SUMIF formula works when you need to sum up a static value, and you can't use a SUMIF formula on an already calculated value. So for example, click-through rate is already a calculation which is based on your clicks divided by your impressions. So we will not be using the SUMIF formula to be dragged across to click-through rate. We will use our click-through rate formula manually and pop that in there. There you go. Your cost, however, can use that formula, so you can just paste that in, double check where it's looking. So it's looking at column O, we want it to look at column Q, so we'll just update that. And then we'll be able to check our week commencing the 21st. 1859 is correct. Conversions is column R in my data sheet. So it's jumped to S because this cell here would have been R. But of course CPC is already a calculation, which is your cost divided by your clicks. Drag that down. Conversions, swap that to R. And again, your conversion rate and your cost per conversion is a formula that you can calculate. Conversions divided by your clicks is your conversion rate. And then your cost per conversion is your cost divided by your conversions. Perfect. So now you've got your data broken down by week based on formulas. You can tidy this up a little bit now, so I just usually like to make everything central, make it all the kind of same width, pop my date to the left. I'll change any number values to more number formats usually, and do it with the 1000 separator with no decimal places. So I'll apply that. Click-through rate should be your percentages. Your cost, CPC and cost per conversions will all be in currency. And it's starting to look a little bit neater. You'll get these div notifications when the formula can't be done. So 0 divided by 0 isn't a legitimate formula. There's nothing it can calculate there, so it will give you this error message. If you want your reports to be a bit more tidy to look at for yourself, or if you're presenting to a potential client, you might want to tidy this up with an if error formula. And an if error formula basically is what it says in the title. If there's an error in the data, you can replace it with something that looks a little bit more neat and tidy. So I'm just going to pop in front of my formula here, if error, and then you keep the formula and separate it by a comma, and then put whatever you want to show. So if you wanted to say the word poodle, if there's an error, you could do that. There you go. But I'd usually keep it a little bit more professional and just have a dash. There you go. So it looks a little bit clean and tidy. Do the same on all your formula columns. And then, yeah. Of course, if it's just yourself looking at the data, you might not be bothered about this process. Depends how much you like your data to look tidy. There we go. So we have all that in place. Now, a good way to be able to analyze your data specifically for week on week is to add in a variance row. I'm just going to delete out these bottom three for now because I don't need them. And I'm going to pop in here a variance. So a variance is going to show you the change that you've had week on week. And in order to calculate that, we are going to do equals whatever last week was minus the week before, and then also divided by the week before. So you put the first in brackets, so last week minus the week before in brackets, divided by the week before. Pop that in as a percentage, and it will give you your variance, which you can drag across. So what it's saying here is, for week commencing the 18th to 11th, we are 35% down on impressions versus week commencing the 11th. So we'll probably just highlight that in a slightly different colour just so you can see the key data here. So week commencing the 18th to the 11th hasn't finished yet in this case, so we've got today and tomorrow based on the fact that it's the 23rd of November. So it's likely that you will see your percentage down. A more fair look at the moment would be to compare the previous week with the week before, so the 11th with the 4th. So you can just change that and see how that was looking. And you can play around with this if you want to compare to last week to 5 weeks ago, or you want to compare even further back depending on your data that you popped into this sheet. If you've got years worth of data, you could look back to year on year, etc. So now we're going to just do a quick discussion about how to read your data and what you will potentially be looking out for, why things might have impacted the data, and how to kind of tell a story with the data. So I'll usually pop on a little bit of a commentary box here, merge and center this, and then you can start typing. And I'll talk about the data as I read it. I always have my data flowing from impressions through to clicks, click-through rate, cost, CPC, conversions, conversion rates, and cost per conversion. I obviously can't spell, so we'll just fix that. There we go. Okay, so when I'm looking at the data for 11th compared to the 4th, we saw a 10% increase in impressions. We saw a 6% drop in clicks, 15% drop in click-through rate, a 3% drop in cost, 4% increase in conversions, cost per click, no change in conversions, conversion rate actually improved, and CPA dropped. So looking at that data, some of the main performance metrics have seen a bit of a hit. So I would probably start the explanation talking about impressions. So we have seen a 10% uplift in impressions week on week. Then you might go in to talk about what exactly drove that increase in impressions. So this came from the X campaign. So for example, it might be that you've invested more budget into a specific campaign that week, you expected to see the impressions go up, or in some cases it might be because you've increased your positioning, so which might be why the CPC here has increased. So loads of different reasons why the impressions might go up. You can look into that in more detail, and we will cover this in other videos further down the line. And then we're going to kind of lead on to the next part. So this would follow with, however, clicks dropped by 6% due to, so our clicks obviously fell because our click-through rate dropped so much. So we're going to see a 15% decrease in click-through rate. And then again, you might want to talk about where that click-through rate decrease came from. Was it a specific campaign? Have you added in new keywords which resulted in higher impressions but were less relevant? So you got a poorer click-through rate and less clicks being generated. Did you test some new ad copy which didn't work as well, so your click-through rate dropped, etc. There's loads of different, obviously, reasons why the data may have been impacted. You might then go on to your cost and talk about CPC inflated by 4% week on week. However, lower traffic volumes resulted in cost decreasing by 3%. And then you'll move on to your conversions and your conversion rates, etc. So that's how you'll start to kind of look into your data in a little bit more detail. You'll be able to analyze any kind of trends, so you could potentially use some conditional formatting to put in some color scales to understand where you've seen peaks in your data. So for example, week commencing the 7th and week commencing the 4th of the 11th were stronger performing weeks in terms of our click volumes. However, if you want to look into your conversion rate in a little bit more detail, you could see that it was a bit lower in September. It's seen some improvements over the few weeks, and then we've had a few drops more recently. Look into why that might have changed. Your conversion rate and your CPA will often follow kind of a similar trend. As your conversion rate improves, your CPA should typically go down unless you kind of invest in more at the same time. So just play around with the data, what it is specifically that you want to look at, and then you can pick this out and write about it in your commentary if you're using it to send to a client, or even just write about it yourself so you really understand your own data and know exactly what's going on in the account. Okay, so that is how you would break down your weeks. We can do the exact same thing for the month. So obviously I can just steal this at the top. And to be naughty, I could actually steal all of the data and start swapping this. So if I say September, and then instead of looking at column B in the formula, I'm going to look at column A. So all my BBs here, I'm going to find and replace with A. And then that should just automatically update with what I need it to. So if we just spot check the data here. So September we had 431 clicks. Perfect. So drag that down for October and November. Great with the detail. So make sure it's all right. So now that's pulled in, that's all correct. 1357, and there you go. You've got your same thing for your November data. So you could do a bit of a analysing the data on this as well. So in this example we have a massive increase in September, from September to October, dropped a little bit in November, but November's not finalised yet, so it's expected. Been some improvements on the conversion rate, so loads of good things you can pick out from the data that we're seeing here. And then if you just want to spruce up your report a little bit, we can start doing things like your view and getting rid of your grid lines. You might want to add a logo in, so you'll insert a picture and pop it in here. You might want to box out your tables so that they stand out a little bit more, have all your borders in, again with your commentary, etc. So it starts coming together a bit more like a report. You can have your raw data tab. And I'd usually hide this, make this a different color, red, and if I'm sending it to a client I would hide it because they don't need to see that data, as well as the VLOOKUP tab. Anything that's just for my eyes can be hidden. So then you're just left with maybe a summary sheet, which will look like this, and then you can colour it in line with your brand colours, for example, if that's what you would like to do. Make it all look very pretty. We've also broken everything out in the data sheet by device, so if you want to add in a table for that, you can do the exact same thing as what we've already been doing. Just copy that down, change this to device, mobile, tablet, computer, and then your device row is D. So you've got mobile phone, so remember to be specific on what you are writing in order for the formulas to work up. And it's tablets, there's TV screens, etc. in there that you can break it down by. So all sorted for your device there as well, so you can do the same thing. It might be that you want to segment your data onto different sheets, so you might want to have a device sheet here and a week on week tab instead of including it all in one specific sheet, so you can copy that over into the relevant sheet. This could be your device sheet, and you can tidy this all up however you want it. All pretty again, however you want to make it look. And there's also kind of a quicker way to manipulate your data onto a spreadsheet as well, through the use of pivot tables. So if you're not interested in doing sum if formulas, you can actually use a pivot table for quickness. And that's simply just going to be on your raw data sheet. Make sure you haven't got any filters on. You can just select the top left hand corner, insert, and pop in a pivot table. Click OK. It'll create a new sheet for you, and you can literally just drag in whatever you want to see here. But bear in mind, you can't drag in things like your click-through rate because it will sum it up. So that's not going to be a true representation of click-through rate. If If you want to use pivot tables, you'll need to get used to using your calculated fields, and you'll create a field which will calculate it for you, and you'll add that in, and that clicks rates correct. It won't let you add a calculated field that already exists, so I named it CTR with a percentage sign so that I could add it in, otherwise it wouldn't accept CTR. So quick intro to pivot tables here as well, so you can drag all your data in and look at it exactly how you were doing before. You can use your months, dates, etc. as a filter if you prefer, so you can just drop down and change things. So you can just look at your October data, add in your weeks and your days, or you might want to pop your days in so you can see all the days in the month and have a filter at the top here, so you can have all the days on, or drop down into specific months and it's all broken down for you there. So depending on how you prefer to report is how you will set this up. I usually use the SUMIFs because I like to make my sheets look more client appealing and friendly with the colours, etc. You can make pivots more kind of colourful and different designs, etc. if you want to play around with it. I personally don't like to use it, but it's completely up to you. I've given you the options there in order to be able to decide for yourself. So thanks for joining me on the quick introduction to how to report based on your campaign performance data. I hope you've enjoyed it and carry on learning.